Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ad Age Next Retail, our first virtual conference focused on the changes happening in the retail industry. I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Senior Reporter at Ad Age. Before the pandemic, we saw many retail shifts already underway in both brick and mortar and online. As customers craved a seamless shopping experience and the expectation of receiving their goods as soon as possible, many retailers were already exploring new checkout options, loyalty apps, and a blending of physical and digital shopping. Yet the coronavirus shook everything up. Suddenly, sales in some categories, like shoes and apparel, were falling drastically. Changes were even more crucial than they were pre-COVID-19. Marketers had to innovate and adapt or risk extinction. Today, we'll talk to those retailers that are successfully navigating this new retail landscape. We'll hear about what learnings they saw from the pandemic and how the changes they made will position them for the future. We'll hear from executives at Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart about how they're handling their new e-commerce expectations. We'll take a tour of the store of the future, now realized separately, by Ulta Beauty and Verizon. Then this afternoon, we'll talk about how car buying can go digital and check in on the blueprints for building a community online. And we'll also look at how marketers should be preparing for a post-COVID world. I'd like to thank our sponsors today, Micmac, PayPal Credit, Roku, and Walmart Media Group. And a special thanks to Loop and Tie. Before we get started, I wanted to let all our viewers know that if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in our social channels, and we'll do our best to get to them during our conversation. And let us know where you're watching from. First up, we'll be talking to Patrick McLean, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Walgreens. The 119-year-old drugstore giant has been revitalizing its approach to data as it becomes more of an essential retailer and less of a single-purpose pharmacy for customers. Hi, Pat. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Adrienne. How are you?
Great. So you joined Walgreens from TD Bank late last year. Obviously, 2020 isn't quite the year you envisioned when you first took this job. Tell us about what your priorities were going in and how they've now shifted because of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting ride for sure. I was just kind of getting used to the idea of having joined Walgreens, and then all of a sudden, all these worldwide changes started happening, and I didn't really have the luxury of a slow-paced integration into the Walgreens team, and so the learning curve really, I had to go up the learning curve really quickly, and but in some ways it was really helpful for me because it really did accelerate my thinking in terms of what needed to get done at Walgreens, how we needed to adapt to the changing customer behavior, and it was sort of drinking from the fire hose and then also springing into action. It was amazing to see the company, frankly. I think in crisis and in moments like what we've experienced over the last 3 or 4 months, the strengths of the brand and the strengths of the company come through, and then also the weaknesses are exposed. And I think in our case, you really saw that. I was just amazed at the operational capability of the company. You think about the size and the scope of our operation, and we knew right away we were going to be an essential service. And so the first priority was to focus on the safety and security of our team members and all of our customers and patients. And at the same time, making sure that that essential service was available to everybody across the country and in all the communities in which we serve. And so that was the focus. And you can imagine all the things that we needed to do in order to keep everyone safe. Everything from just additional cleaning in the store. We implemented a lot of communication in the store and across all of our owned properties, for that matter, in terms of expectations of social distancing and communicating what we were doing at the store level to keep people safe and secure. And then eventually implementing things like plexiglass in the store. So just watching the organization rally and execute in the moment of crisis was amazing to watch. And then the other thing, for a little bit closer to home for the marketing organization, was we were really being expected from our customers to be providing advice and information and expertise in healthcare. And so what was really interesting is we just naturally gravitated to this place of producing and creating content that was helpful to people in the early days of the crisis, because now social distancing techniques and expectations are, pretty widespread. Everybody knows generally what to do, but in the early days, nobody really knew what to do. Should I be wearing a mask? What does it mean to social distance? And so we were responding in real time to the questions that we were getting from our customers and putting content in the market really quickly that was all in this place of providing expertise and information and advice, both what we had at our disposal and then also through all of our communication with the CDC and other health agencies. We were put right in the middle of that customer communication and information sharing and content production. It was a really interesting early experience for us.
Yeah, it makes your role and relationship with the customer so much more important. Now, you guys started a partnership with Microsoft last year. Tell us about why and what that partnership entails.
Sure. Well, it's a broad partnership with Microsoft. And then more recently, we announced that both with Microsoft and with Adobe, we're going to be implementing some marketing technology that's going to help us get, first of all, our data assets organized and more useful in terms of being able to reach customers in a what we call a mass personalization way. Obviously, the Adobe stack and the software and the capabilities that they bring to the table, along with the broad set of capabilities that Microsoft brings with their technology, in concert are going to take our mass personalization agenda to the next level. So we have 100 million plus customers in our loyalty program, in our Balance Rewards program. And we've been, especially more recently, harnessing the power of the data that is embedded within that relationship that we have with those customers. And we've been using it to model audiences and becoming increasingly individualized in terms of the content and the creative and the communication that we're putting to our customer base. But right now, it's really being done with a lot of our existing technology, which is a little outdated. And so it's sort of put together with bubble gum and duct tape. And so what this new platform and what this partnership with Microsoft and Adobe is going to do for us is give us a really robust platform to be able to automate, streamline a lot of the things that we're already starting to do, and take that to the next level so that we're able to even more effectively organize the data, access the data, and then use it in a automated and an AI way to be able to be more relevant to our customers more often. And so it's a really big effort for our team. We've just begun the implementation, and we're looking forward in the coming months to seeing the fruits of our labor and the partnership that we have with Microsoft come to bear for our customers and for our brand. So really exciting.
Have you had to adjust your app at all in any way as people have been turning to more digital orders?
Yeah, absolutely. We just did a refresh of our app and both the look and feel, and then also the user experience layer. We've refreshed that. We've actually brought a lot of the more recent services that we put in market up to the forefront within that app. And what's been really interesting for us throughout the COVID experience is, I talked about the strengths and the weaknesses that come to light and are spotlighted during moments of crisis like this. And for us, we knew that we needed to get a lot more invested in omnichannel experiences and digital experiences. And we had a lot of things on the roadmap and a lot of things that we were planning to get to, call it, over the next 18 to 24 months. But what we learned really quickly during the COVID period is that, well, just overnight, those expectations went through the roof. And so we had to really quickly accelerate the implementation of a lot of those convenience omnichannel experiences that we knew our customers expected, but became really heightened in terms of those expectations during the COVID crisis. So it was things like we had always had on our roadmap we've got a great drive-through service for pharmacy. Why couldn't we offer retail products through the drive-through experience so people can get their pharmacy products, but then also if they wanted some retail products, we could all package that up and deliver it through the drive-through. Things like curbside pickup, things like home delivery. We had a pilot going with Postmates, and that was going very well, and there were plans to expand that. Well, guess what? All three of those things we've delivered in a really short period of time. And again, a good example of the company just rallying in these moments of crisis, but it did expose that we didn't have those things, and customers were expecting us to have those things. And so now we've got curbside pickup. We're offering retail products through drive-through. We've expanded our partnership with Postmates. And so it's really been an acceleration of all those things that we knew we needed to get to, but those investments accelerated. We rallied as an organization to operationalize them. And then to your point, in terms of the role that that plays in the customer experience from a mobile perspective, from a digital perspective, those things have now been amplified and are much more prominent. We have some work to do to make those experiences more robust and make sure that operationally they're working as efficiently as possible. But at least from a customer-facing perspective, we've now got those services in place and delivering on those expectations that our customers have.
The curbside pickup and drive-through is interesting. I thought you were talking about curbside pickup, but drive-through seems like something completely different. I mean, this isn't a fast food order that you're getting. So it's on demand, basically. You drive up and place your order and then pick it up at the next stop kind of thing?
That's exactly right. So I heard a great customer quote. I think they said, "I really wish that the whole world was drive-through right now." And so it's really interesting because it's been a unique asset that Walgreens has, and it's always been available for pharmacy pickup. And now we've just expanded that convenience offering to include retail products. Now, of course, not everything can fit through the window, so you can't buy everything. But
toilet paper,
and always expanding list of things that are available through that service. So it's a really unique offering. And of course, in this time frame, you can imagine all these use cases where parents need some essential products and services, and maybe they want to bring their kids with them because they want to leave them at home because they're too young, but they also don't want to go into the store. And so you could imagine how convenient that is for customers to be able to actually drive through with their kids in the back seat with masks on and get everything that they need from a healthcare perspective, their pharmacy needs, and then also a lot of the retail essential needs in that really convenient and efficient way to get their needs met.
What about subscriptions? Are you doing anything around mail order delivery and that kind of thing?
Yeah, the mail orders expanded quite significantly. And then obviously our e-commerce business has expanded quite dramatically. The other subscription business that we were piloting and then we've expanded nationally is Prescription Savings Club. So Prescription Savings Club is a way for people, particularly who pay cash for medications, who aren't covered by insurance, to lower the cost of that prescription. And it gives people really good transparency into the best option for them, whether it's a generic version of a drug that they were getting before, and just optimizing the savings for that customer. So we've actually launched that nationally now, and it's a great service. And it's $20 a month, but the savings can be in the hundreds, and in some cases maybe even in the thousands of dollars that you can access through that service. So that's an example again of how we've rolled out what was initially a pilot and a test that we were learning to expand nationally, and we just accelerated it so that our customers had access to it. And that was again in response to the insight that a lot of people have been losing their jobs, obviously big unemployment impacts over the course of the COVID period. And so we saw this increase in people without access to insurance. And so this became another need that we wanted to make sure that we were meeting for people to make sure that they were getting all the savings that they could when they're paying cash for their prescriptions.
Now, speaking of some of those needs that you've seen from changing consumer behavior, I saw that you guys are testing a few dozen small format pharmacies in a pilot program. and then also in-store doctor offices. Both those things sounds very interesting. Tell us about what's behind all this.
Sure. Well, again, I think they're all good examples of Walgreens' intent to be responsive to all of the local communities in which we operate. In some cases, a smaller format pharmacy might make sense for a particular community. And there are many communities throughout the U.S. that are underserved in terms of access to primary care doctors. So you saw this morning, we actually announced a partnership with Village MD where we're going to be expanding the pilot that we have with them and doing 500 plus more locations in partnership with Village MD, where people will have access to primary care and the Walgreens experience in the same format. And so that's really exciting for us, because what we found is that there's just this great customer need to have that full service or that integrated health experience. And everything that we're seeing in the pilot suggests that there really is high demand for that particular combination. And the Walgreens brand is really resonating in that model because, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of expertise. And in a lot of ways, the pharmacist actually sees the patient more frequently and has, in a lot of ways, a very full picture of the customer's health and wellness needs. And so it's been a really powerful combination of, if you need primary care, it's there at the same place as your local pharmacist and your trusted pharmacist, who can take care not only of just your pharmacy needs, but also give advice on other wellness offerings and other maybe over-the-counter things that might be helpful to whatever health and wellness need that you're trying to address. So it's been a really good set of experiences and experiments for us to learn and test and learn our way into these new offerings and new formats. In a similar way, we have a partnership and a pilot with Kroger, where we have grocery offering from Kroger within a Walgreens format. And it's just another example of us making sure that we're getting as much insight into what potential offerings and new formats and new customer experiences we can launch and deliver into the marketplace to meet the ever-changing needs of people.
Right, and there's such a need for this one-stop shop, which seems like you guys are really addressing. If you're just joining us, I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli with Ad Age, and I'm joined by Patrick McLean, the Chief Marketing Officer of Walgreens. I'd like to say a few shout-outs to some people tuning in. We have John from Ireland and Louis from Singapore, as well as Frank from New York and Jacqueline from California. Thanks, guys, for watching. So Pat, let's talk about the role of marketing in all of this. How are you alerting customers to your new capabilities? And we do have a spot we can share. If you maybe we'll roll that first, and then we'll get into
sure
the marketing changes.
What we've been doing over the course of this period. Sure, sounds good.
At Walgreens, we know summer may look different this year. Luckily, we're right around the corner with safer ways to shop so you can enjoy the moments you do make. Like making sure you have pool toys the whole family can try out. And never running out of sunscreen before playing in the yard. And if you do spend the day indoors, always have enough snacks. This summer, Walgreens is making shopping safer with touchless pay and drive-through pickup so you can keep your summer going. Walgreens.
So there's a lot to unpack there. The sunscreen, kids putting on sunscreen rings very familiar to me personally. But also, obviously, there's a lot of safety messages there. Tell us about some of this messaging that you're doing.
Yeah, it's really important that we communicate with customers first, that we're available to them for whatever needs that they have, relative to the experience that they're having through COVID. And so the key insight there was where usually in the summer, you get kids going to camps, you got summer vacations and all kinds of travel involved. And this year, maybe there's still a little bit of that, but there's a lot less. And so the big insight here is people are staying home. They've got to entertain their kids. They want to still have fun and enjoy the summer. but it's a little bit different than it's been in obviously every summer that we've experienced in our lifetimes. And so we wanted to show that we're in tune with that and that we've got all of the essentials to make sure that summer is as fun as possible in the context. But the other thing, as you highlighted, is we really want to make sure we're reassuring customers that it's a safe environment to shop. So if you want to shop with us through e-commerce, if you want to take advantage of the shop and curbside pickup or shop and drive-through, that's fine. But also, if you feel like you want to come into the store, if you feel comfortable, we want to reassure you that we're doing everything we possibly can to make it a safe environment. And so you saw there just real safety, a real safety experience at checkout. And so we wanted to make sure that in the communication that was highlighted. We actually just launched another very similar campaign that is highlighting even more so the safety precautions that we're taking in store to be able to make sure that people feel comfortable. What's interesting is the other insight that we have is that Walgreens is actually favored by a lot of customers in terms of that trip consolidation, because we're a smaller format retailer, and so people actually feel safer because they feel like they can get in and out of a Walgreens quickly and still get everything that they need and get everything done. And so it's turning into a really interesting value proposition for Walgreens, which is smaller format. I can, if I want to go into the store, I could park, I can go in, I can get everything done, and I can get out of there. And I trust them to be safe. And so that's the story that we're trying to convey in a lot of the communication. And the other thing that I think is really interesting is just the new way that marketers are getting work done. Adrian, all of that is user-generated content for the most part. We're doing very little, actual production work in terms of doing shots and camera work ourselves. It's getting a little bit better, but all of this, including, I think you've got the graduation spot available to show as well, and that was all done virtually. We partnered with BB Rexa because the insight there was this moment of graduation for people this year was also going to look very different. And so we wanted to celebrate graduation this year for all the folks that were going to miss that in-person ceremony. So BB actually created a modern and put her unique twist on the song "Pomp and Circumstance," which, as you know, is the big graduation song. So here it is here.
Well, speaking of kind of how things are getting made and school, there is back to school coming up. Now, I've heard from some brands that they're putting together, producing multiple pieces of content because no one knows what's going to happen. Is it back to school? Is it back to homeschool? How is that entering the equation for you guys?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really, the needs will be very similar. You're still going to need, the supplies that you would need, whether you're doing the work at home or whether you're doing it at school. So I think for us, it's not going to change dramatically our approach. And one of the things we are doing is partnering with the We Foundation and providing more support for local schools as they try to deal with, obviously the uncertainty of people coming back to school. And so we're going to be rolling out a donation program where if you purchase some of the Walgreens branded product, that will actually make donations to local schools within all the communities in which we operate. So that's going to be one of the anchor things that we do for back to school, because we think it's just really important that we're supporting the education system and frankly teachers who I can only imagine are under a tremendous amount of stress as they try to make sure that they're doing their best for the students. So for us, we're very focused, and I don't think it's going to change our program all that dramatically.
And one last question on marketing. I wanted to, of course, ask you about the Facebook boycott for July that's growing. I believe AdAge.com covered Walgreens joining this boycott last week. Tell us about why and what your thoughts are on this.
Well, we wanted to join the community and the industry in sending the message to Facebook. We've also been letting our views be known to them directly. And so for us, being supportive of the overall industry in this effort, we're going to take the time to actually further educate ourselves on what more we can do to make sure that these platforms are safe for everyone, and we're going to be reevaluating our own strategy when it comes to our media execution and our investment on these platforms. So I think it's a great moment for the marketing community to be coming together to put pressure on Facebook to do a better job, frankly. And so we were more than happy to throw our support behind the efforts. And I think, like everyone, we're trying to do the right thing, and we're going to be taking the rest of July to, not only continue to support the effort, but then also, evaluate how we participate in these platforms moving forward. So, I think pretty straightforward decision, and I'm very proud of that we made it. We made it globally, so it's not just Walgreens, but it's the other WBA brands and businesses that are in line. And I think it's a very important issue, and one that we'll all continue to work on together.
Well, we have just enough time for one audience question. Let's see. We have Mike on YouTube is wondering if Walgreens spending on advertising has increased, decreased, or remained the same since mid-March. Any shifting of dollars to different mediums in the past few months?
We haven't made any significant shift in terms of YouTube in particular. We have definitely altered our overall media strategy, and obviously with people behaving differently and being at home. What's been really interesting is just one example would be the whole dynamic on local television, and people have been tuning in unprecedented ways, in a lot of ways, to their local news and their local stations to be able to get the latest on what's happening in their community. So you've seen a lot of change in the media landscape. Same with audio. Audio's changed in a very significant way. People aren't commuting as much, and so their audio behavior has changed a lot more to podcasts and other forms of audio. And so we've been making sure that we're keeping abreast of what we're seeing in terms of changing customer behavior, and we've been adapting our media from that perspective. Quite substantially, and we ebbed and flowed throughout the crisis. We were a little bit heavier during some periods of it. We took a little bit of a break to reevaluate how much brand marketing, frankly, we actually wanted in market during that time. And then even just from a content and creative perspective, we had to shift pretty dramatically, because what we had in the pipeline for marketing wasn't necessarily relevant or even appropriate, given all the things that changed. So I would say it was a very fluid situation. It has been a very fluid situation over the last 3+ months, and I think it'll continue to be as we start to get out of hopefully the lockdowns that we've had, and the country starts to reopen. And I think we're going to be in different places regionally, so we're taking a very regional approach to our media. So probably more of a broad-based answer than you were looking for, but it's a very fluid situation in terms of media spend, I would say.
And on that note of flexibility, I think we'll end because we're out of time. Pat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Please kick this off, and everybody enjoy the rest of the virtual conference. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll be talking about how retailers can take advantage of the surge in online shopping brought on by the coronavirus. According to the most recent numbers from eMarketer, e-commerce spending will increase 18% this year in the US as consumers spend some $709 billion digitally. Brick and mortar spending, by comparison, is expected to decrease 14%. So having a cohesive digital experience and a seamless checkout is all the more crucial now when retailers are less reliant on their brick and mortar fleets. Joining us today, we have Mike Dwinger, Vice President of E-commerce Experience at Dick's Sporting Goods, Stephen Howard Serene, Vice President of Strategy at Walmart Media Group, and Deborah Thomas, Associate Partner at digital agency Work & Co. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's start by talking about the rise in online shopping that retailers have seen in recent weeks. You guys have had a front row seat to that. You're seeing not just what consumers have been buying, but how they're buying it as well. Mike, Dick's saw quite a rise in e-commerce sales for its most recent quarter. Why do you think that was, and how have you been driving more sales online when people are afraid possibly to visit stores in person?
I think the big thing is the behavior has changed, right? So our customers, our athletes have really kind of changed what they've wanted. And the great thing is we were kind of ready to meet that change, right? So we were able to create kind of lean experiments to understand how we get into things quicker. And probably one of the most successful things we've been able to roll out as long as I can remember over the last couple of years is this curbside pickup. And it's really been a game changer for us to be able to introduce the ability to place an order online and then in minutes be able to drive to your local store and have somebody place this order in your trunk or your back seat. And you're on your way and able to enjoy it, because the need for a lot of the stuff that we've been selling, be it fitness equipment or outdoor goods, has really been at an all-time high. And it's been great to be able to service those needs just through that curbside model.
And that's new, the curbside.
Yeah, it was actually a really great thing, right? Like as this whole thing kind of started to unravel, the conversations of it kind of started on a Friday and it was live by a Sunday. So it's, really kind of some unprecedented time to market for us. And it's something we've been prepping for the last couple of years as we thought about our technology stack a little bit different. And while we've had a buy online pickup in store program that's been relatively successful, really being able to flip to this curbside model has really been a win for us, where we've been able to make it extremely safe and comfortable for the athlete to come pick up their products.
Now, Stephen, what about advertisers on Walmart.com? I know a lot of the brands that you guys stock may have seen supply dwindle early on, things like hand sanitizers, for instance. Did you see a big pullback from those brands that had been in high demand while other brands were bumping up their visibility?
So we actually pulled back on the advertising for them, right? So, just like Dick's, we know what we have in stock. And so we didn't want to run advertising from suppliers for products that the customer wouldn't be able to go readily get, right, all nationwide. So we use a set of KPIs around availability and delivery times to determine whether we're going to allow an advertiser to advertise. What we saw then was some of those advertisers switched to a more sort of empathetic message rather than a demand driving message. So that was important for a lot of brands to sort of be present and still be communicating, but not trying to just drive demand into the store. And then when things eased up, we were able to sort of green light them back on.
And that messaging kind of changed into more of a product-based messaging, for example.
Yes, that's right.
Now, Deborah, as an agency, you're responsible for perfecting the user experience for brands. What types of requests have you been hearing from clients? What kinds of things are they asking for in terms of pain points in the e-commerce experience?
I think that overall in this time where there's kind of retailers are facing a new context, it is a lot of the same problems that we've been trying to optimize and solve for. But kind of like Mike was saying, making sure that customers know all the different fulfillment options that are available to them, whether it's delivery or contactless delivery, being able to pick something up at the curb or collect it in the store. I think having those things really at the forefront is super important. I think there's also ways that how can you increase customer confidence to purchase online if they can't go see something in person? And we've been doing a lot of interesting projects using AR to help people visualize and experience the products in a different way so that they feel more confident to buy. And I think the third thing, which is maybe not something that you would expect, is that if you have much more increased demand of people buying things online and you want to not have people be in the physical stores for reasons other than purchasing, then that's where like customer support, being able to do returns need to be able to be done online so that you don't have people going to physical stores to return things that they purchased online.
Now, speaking of AR, you do a lot of work with IKEA, and that seems like a key area, furniture for augmented reality. But what other retailers would use something like that?
I think that there's also ways that people want to visualize potentially clothes. They want to visualize art. I think in the home furnishing space, it's like very, very relevant because you can get an idea of how the size of something feels. But I mean, we've seen interesting things happen with Nike, and also being able to customize products and be able to visualize them or experience them in a different way can be really fun.
Now, Mike, did Dick's have to pivot at all and make any website changes or anything like that during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a little bit of pivot that has to happen. It's a little bit in prioritization. It's a little bit in how you're driving things. I think for the biggest part, we really wanted to sit back and kind of listen to our athlete and see what they were asking for. So we found, different ways to reach out and really talk to the athlete and think about things. If that was on-site surveys, if that was, user testing, whatever it looked like, it was really about getting out there and kind of understanding what the needs were. And those needs constantly shifted. We've talked a little bit about fitness equipment, but, it seemed like everybody in America has a home gym now, thanks to the sales that we saw, and it was great. But the demand for fitness equipment still isn't gone today, and keeping up with that demand has been really, really difficult. So we have pivoted some things that had maybe been on a roadmap as a later thing that didn't get prioritized, made it to the top of the list. So we implemented like a notify me feature when something was out of stock. And that was something where, it had always been something we had talked about, but it was never anything that kind of made it above that line of like just enough to be able to really drive the value home. But right now we're finding the amount of people that are filling that out and wanting to be reached out to, and how we reach out to them, we're learning as we go. A lot of these things that we've rolled out are very kind of, MVP for lack of a better term. And then we're iterating, right? Like curbside must have had 5 or 6 iterations when we talked about how to get the athlete to check in at the store, and what was handwritten signs in windows are now like actual marketing pieces. And we've learned a lot of really cool things, and we keep learning. And as this whole as the summer months progress, we're trying to figure out like what the next is as we kind of approach this whole thing.
I feel like there's also this exchange, like somebody wants something that's out of stock, you say, notify me, the customer's giving you information about themselves because you're providing this new service for something they really want. And I think that's really critical in the relationship. Stephen, what about at Walmart? Have you guys had to make any pivots or changes during the past few months? It looks like you have.
Yeah, I mean, this is a generational change in customer behavior, and you have to accelerate into that in order to have a chance to stay with the customer while she changes. So we actually had previously planned to sort of merge our online grocery delivery and pickup app into our general merchandise app. We did that in stages, but it was complete in April, right? So fortuitous timing, but it had to be pulled forward because we saw a 400% increase in the number of new users who wanted to do curbside pickup or delivery for their groceries, which is something that most of America still hasn't done. But we see that going nuts. Similarly, the store environment had to change. So contactless payment had to be implemented across the fleet. And because people just, when they went into a store, safety was a paramount concern. They'd rather touch fewer things. So a lot of commerce that was digitally enabled, both in the store and in sort of e-commerce and changing e-commerce, all of that had to be accelerated in the last just few months.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli from Ad Age, and I'm joined by Mike Dwinger from Dick's Sporting Goods, Stephen Howard Serene from Walmart, and Deborah Thomas from Work & Co. I'd like to remind everyone watching on our social channels to please send us questions, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. Now, Mike, I know a lot of the brands that Dick's carries have said that they want to push more into this direct-to-consumer relationship, these other channels for them. Nike, for example, said something on this in their last quarterly earnings call. How is Dick's managing to still drive interest to its site, and how does the e-commerce experience become more crucial under this type of pressure? Yeah,
so while I think that's definitely something, like, we have great partnerships with these brands and continue to do some really strong work with them across the board. We are strongly a store. We have a strong store footprint. We have large number of locations across the country. So that definitely gives us a benefit there. In addition to that, the fact that you can get so much different stuff at a Dick's Sporting Goods for someone. Back to school is always this really great time frame for us, because it's not only back to school, it's back to sport. It's back to campus, all these kind of things that people kind of need to pick up. And I mean, while this back to school might be unique from anyone in the past, it's still kind of that thing. So we really think there's benefits to us being able to do more and more in this space by bringing multiple things together under one roof.
Right. This idea of one-stop shopping is something we talked about in the previous session with Walgreens, and I think it's even more critical now with the pandemic. People don't want to keep going to multiple places, multiple sites. So now that stores have reopened, Stephen, what are your priorities for what e-commerce can deliver? I mean, of course, you kind of touched on the role of stores as a fulfillment center. Obviously, buy online, pick up in store. Can you expand on some of what Walmart is doing there a little bit?
Yeah, so first and foremost, and for this foreseeable future, right? Like, safety in the store for associates and shoppers is going to be number one. So we're closing stores at night, cleaning down all the surfaces, doing things that make the in-store experience better and safer for people. Like, that's a new requirement, and we're going to stick with that. Also, as you mentioned, turning the store into a fulfillment center, both for ship to home as well as for buy online and pick up. Like, that's expanded dramatically. I think we have 1,600 stores now where we ship directly to people's houses from the store. And of course, millions of people doing the grocery shopping where they drive and get the groceries into their trunk. So those things are changing. I mentioned the contactless pay. This is something that's got a lot of legs to it, right? So we always had Walmart Pay, but as we accelerate into these customer changes, the ability to buy things just through a payment system on your phone during self-checkout, that's also accelerating. So we're seeing the phone becoming much more of an enabler of the in-store experience, and a hybrid omni shopping experience rapidly becoming the norm.
Now, Deborah, I wanted to ask you about the idea of privacy and personal data. As more customers are shopping online, there's concern about some targeted advertising and how people are being tracked as they shop. How does this play into the kind of work you're doing for your retail clients? And is this something you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, we actually did a big project with IKEA. This is something that they've taken on as an initiative to kind of, I think they're really like a leader in the retail space in terms of coming up with a data policy and promise to their customers that really puts customers first. There's been so much progress in terms of data ethics with GDPR and CCPA, but these are legal things. And I don't think anyone has really spent the time to look at what the user experience of this is, especially on retail sites. We see cookie messages over and over again, and especially on a mobile phone, it's blocking most of the screen. And some of the work that we've done with IKEA is focused on how do we make sure that our customers really understand what they're signing up for and that they feel good about what they're agreeing to, that they truly understand it. And I think it's going to be something in the future with people shopping online more right now that people become more and more aware of and focused on.
Stephen, did you have any thoughts on that, the role of privacy and kind of first-party data?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, people expect the retailer to know what they purchased, right? If you ever want to return something, you want the retailer to know that you bought that thing and to remember that thing. Good retailing in person means being known and getting recommendations that are appropriate for you. So a lot of the privacy concerns change when the customer knows exactly who they're talking to and why they're getting that information. What the customer doesn't expect is for a retailer or anyone else that they have a relationship with to go sell their data to somebody else. So we want to make sure that we're using customer data, a lot of it, to improve the customer experience for the customer when they're shopping in the store or when they're shopping online. And we haven't seen a customer concern around that because they understand, they can connect the dots. They see how the data is leading to a recommendation. It's any other usage that I think makes people get a little itchy.
Now, Stephen, we actually have a question coming in for you. From someone on Twitter is asking, they'd love to know your thoughts on holiday, which is a great thing to talk about right now. How you're forecasting at Dick's Sporting Goods, and actually, Stephen, you can start by talking about Walmart Black Friday plans.
Yeah, so the one thing I can say is that I think we're experiencing, Black Friday in April, Black Friday in May. So we've been at these enormously elevated levels that we typically associate with holiday right now. So number one, we're really focused on capacity because holiday shopping is going to be up level. It's easily going to be bigger for us than we've seen in the past, assuming people still give gifts, right, and prepare meals for their families. So capacity is a big issue. Nothing to say about the sort of in-store experience for Black Friday. I think that's a little too early to call.
Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about what Dick's has planned?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to echo kind of some of the same sentiment, right? Like we've seen days that look like Black Friday, that look like Cyber Monday, just in April, in May, right? So we've seen some days that look that good at that level of growth. So I think trying to predict things out is a little bit difficult, not knowing where the worlds are going to be and stuff like that. But I mean, we're preparing. We're going to see continued growth kind of in the same state. So I think it's a matter of just kind of hoping that you get your guess a little bit right. I mean, for us, it's been a matter of, we've had kind of a big thing that's kind of led us through every piece of this, right? Like if it was fitness at the beginning and then the outdoor stuff and really kind of seeing, I think right now we're trying to predict what back to school looks like. And, if kids are going to go back to school and what a typical season might look like there. And then ultimately, cover that Black Friday thoughts as we get a little bit closer there.
Yeah, it feels like one step at a time because everything is changing at such a rapid pace.
It's hard to predict next week right now.
How about tomorrow? We have a question from Melinda on Facebook. She says that typically in-store promos and shelf space are baked into the value of merchandising deals with suppliers. Are you seeing that being devalued by suppliers given the heightened focus on e-commerce and less reliance on the in-store traffic? Does anyone want to take that?
No.
Sure.
No. I don't think we're going to significantly see anything in our stores change based on e-com, right? Like I think there's certain stores that are I think the stores are going to perform as the stores perform. I think it's a matter of how do we integrate them as best we can. And I think we've talked a lot about those topics already. Around being able to do buy online, pick up in store, contactless curbside, those type of things.
Yeah, the customer journey is omni. It includes both. It's going to include both forever. Like, so it's not a moving from one side to the other kind of discussion.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I did want to kind of take a look at where e-commerce is heading for each of you. I was hoping you could each kind of in a nutshell tell us what your digital areas of focus will be for the remainder of 2020 and kind of moving into where you see things going in 2021. Deborah, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I think that we're looking at a lot of ways in terms of how do we make a unique e-commerce experience for our clients, kind of trying to, a lot of our clients have really amazing physical experiences, and how do we translate that into digital so that that brand still comes through and there's a seamless experience there. And I think also in terms of the data ethics project that I talked about with IKEA, I think that this will just become a bigger topic more and more, and thinking about how we use data to benefit the customers, but also making the experience really transparent and clear.
Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I think for us, it's continual evolvement of the things that we've been doing, right? So how do we make contactless curbside even better? How do we continue to improve the in-store experience through some digital initiatives, try and keep those things a little bit more connected? Really being transparent about our inventory, I think is really important to the athlete right now. Like, where is it? How can I get it? How quickly can I get something? If something's not in stock right now, how do I get it in my hands eventually, if that's notify me or a back order? So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do in that space. I think most of all, it's, how do we listen to exactly what the athlete's asking for, exactly what they need, and be able to pivot like we have in these past few months, and really operate quickly, get things out in the digital space quickly, get things out in the store space quickly. So that we can really meet the needs of the athlete right at the point that they want something, and not have to, miss out or be late to a party there.
No one wants to be late to the party.
Never.
Stephen, what about you? What's Walmart thinking about for the rest of the year, e-commerce wise?
I'll answer this question for an ad age audience, right? So if the customer journey has become hybridized digital and physical, it's omnichannel. If that's now the new normal, well, so does the advertising, right? So all of your advertising has already become digital in terms of the dollars spent, but there hasn't been enough connectivity between the way a customer shops and the way that advertising is delivered. And so that's a big focus for us, right? The DTC brands of the world, they have a clean shot because it's all connected. We think that's the future for retail with regard to advertising as well.
Great. Well, that is all the time that we have for this session. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the day.
Up next, we have a message from one of our sponsors, PayPal Credit, and we'll be right back after that.
Welcome to today's Next Publishers Fireside, where we talk to thought leaders, influencers in the media, marketing, and advertising industries. I'm Josh Golden, the president and publisher of Ad Age, and today I have with me David Gandel, who is the head of network marketing and partnerships for PayPal Credit. David, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Josh. I'm very excited to be here. A longtime fan of Ad Age, and excited for this opportunity.
I'm so glad. It's a terrific event we're doing about retail, so I'm super excited to have your thoughts and insight. Perhaps we should start with a little bit of the derivation of PayPal Credit so everyone knows how it's come into an existence?
Yeah, so the ability for retailers to offer buy now, pay later financing options at checkout has been in the news a lot recently. It's a very hot topic, both from a shopper perspective and from a retailer perspective. PayPal was actually the originator of this space. We wrote this playbook, and we were the first to bring these capabilities to market in the early 2000s. Back in Baltimore, there was a venture-backed startup called Bill Me Later, which was founded by some credit card veterans who brought the point-of-sale financing solution to market. In 2008, Bill Me Later got purchased by PayPal and was rebranded as PayPal Credit. So we've been in this for a long time. There's been about $50 billion in transactions sent through PayPal Credit since that Bill Me Later acquisition.
In particular, I'm curious, there's a lot of, obviously, PayPal Credit, ordinarily there's sort of the singular transaction that people are familiar with, but PayPal Credit is something different. And I'd like for you to, if you could, just sort of give me the high level on the solution for retailers in particular, because I know our audience is very focused on that today. Yeah,
PayPal Credit works for retailers because we offer that experience I've talked about. We've been through credit cycles. We've been through the 2008 global financial crisis and emerged stronger on the other side of it. We bring scale, 300 million users around the world. We bring proven products that work, and we continue to innovate even at scale. So those are all unique things that we bring. We drive new customers to our merchants. We actively market the availability of PayPal Credit to our base. They love to see it. They come looking for PayPal Credit. It's available inside the PayPal wallet. But where it really works is when merchants promote it outside of that wallet. The availability of promotional financing inside their websites is so important. About 90% of the spend with PayPal Credit is reuse. So it's a loyalty accelerator. In terms of products, we've worked very hard to deliver products at various price points and for various verticals. We've got a core product. We've got a 6 months no interest on purchases over $99. This is a super relevant product in the current environment. So 6 months no interest over $99. It's scale, it's experience, and it's innovative products that have kept us relevant for retailers.
Interesting. When you obviously have an overwhelming quantity of data given both your number of people that are using it as well as the transactions that happen. I'm guessing the pandemic has created an overwhelming quantity of insight.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So the pandemic has dramatically accelerated some of the trends that we already saw underway. So e-commerce in general is thriving. That's not surprising. I think we all have increased our own e-commerce spend during the shelter-in-place environment and during this pandemic. Here we have all sorts of things coming into our house that we ordered online that we would not have ordered online before the shelter in place. So, in terms of data, e-commerce represented 14% of global retail sales last year. It's expected to grow more than 20% in 2020. The month of April saw a 49% increase in e-commerce sales. We've seen similar trends inside of PayPal. We had our largest day in terms of volume in the company's history on May 1st. Larger than Cyber Monday, larger than Black Friday, just May 1st, right? Not a holiday. We had 140% increase over January and February in net new accounts in the month of April. And we also hit an all-time record 7.4 million new customers in the month of April. So inside of PayPal, we are going on this e-commerce trend and really seeing some accelerated growth.
Wow, David, that's amazing. Let's just quickly take a look at what's coming up this afternoon at Ad Age Retail. And we're back with David from PayPal Credit. Thank you so much, David, for joining us on the conversation. Can you tell me 3 things that brand marketers should consider when using flexible financing solutions? I'm assuming, obviously, it might be PayPal Credit focused, but I got to believe that everyone is in need of a great retail solution that's going to offer something that's differentiated for consumers that are buying now.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. And as I mentioned, the trends that we had seen slowly developing over the last 10 years have been accelerated this spring. It's a super unusual time. So a lot of brand marketers are likely looking for promotional financing offers, flexibility for point of sale payment options, et cetera. PayPal Credit, we know we're a loyalty accelerator. 56% of our users in the US say they're more likely to shop at that retailer again if they offer PayPal Credit, so they stay loyal to those retailers. We're a driver of sales. We've got that 300 million account number. That's a massive number, right? So people are looking for flexible ways to pay. Among that 300 million, we're able to market our merchants to those customers. My team works on that every single day, bringing our PayPal Credit merchants out to that big customer base. And most interestingly, millennials and Gen Zs, turns out they love flexible financing offers and they love PayPal Credit. We boarded an awful lot of millennials and Gen Zs through our Venmo platform and through PayPal over the years. They're engaged with PayPal Credit. They want these financing options. We actively market to them. Average order values of millennials using PayPal Credit are 44% higher. With Gen Z, it's 72% higher. So
Wow.
they're using the product and they're expanding their payment capabilities with it.
Just a quick one, David. I'm just curious. I went into a store the other day and then someone asked me to sign something, and I was like, God, I don't want to touch anything. You've got to be thinking about ways to not have touchless exits, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I did. I mentioned innovation earlier and how we've had to accelerate some of our innovation roadmaps given what's happened in the last few months. And a large part of our innovation recently has been around developing QR code capabilities. So, this is outside of PayPal Credit, but eventually they'll be merged together. QR code on your phone, so you don't have to pick up that pen, sign or touch that punch card. You hold up your phone, scan a QR code off the retailer, and make the transaction on your phone. We are bringing that capability to market in an innovative way now.
All right, so it's very clear to me that obviously no one's been untouched by the pandemic, and particularly small businesses. It seems like and communities are being hit the hardest. I know that I did some shopping myself just to make certain that all of our businesses that were local stayed alive. I'm curious, is PayPal doing anything in particular to help support small businesses and communities in particular?
Yeah, and Josh, PayPal's a values-driven company, and it always has been. And over the last few months, PayPal's really made some strong moves to support our small business partners, who are so critical to our ecosystem. So in recent years, PayPal had provided $15 billion in financing to more than 300,000 small businesses around the globe. As soon as we entered this unusual time, the decision was made on a corporate level to offer a pause in repayment for those small businesses. So anyone that needed it, anyone that asked for it, was given the opportunity to pause their repayments to help them manage their cash flow better, right? Around the same time, we also began working with the SBA on the payroll protection program. On April 10th, we went live as part of the payroll protection program. Since then, we provided nearly $2 billion in PPP funding to about 69,000 businesses. So this is actually happening at PayPal scale as well. We've got the PayPal Giving platform with fundraising campaigns around COVID-19 that we waived any fees for. And very importantly, in the last few weeks, PayPal has stepped up in the Black Lives Matter movement and been extraordinary in what they've done. So PayPal's made a $530 million commitment to support Black and minority-owned businesses with a special focus on those communities hit hard by the pandemic. So PayPal's not just talking the talk. We're putting the money and the products right behind our values, and it makes me very proud to be part of it.
Oh my gosh, David, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's funny, the amount of change that's happened, it's been enormous, and that kind of change is really welcome. David, thank you so much for your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, David Gendel, the head of network marketing and partnerships for PayPal Credit. David, you did great. Thank you so much for joining us for the conversation today.
And thank you, Josh. It's a great event. Really proud to be part of it, and thanks for the opportunity.
You are certainly welcome.
Welcome back. I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Senior Reporter of Ad Age. For our next panel, we'll be looking at the store of the future, taking a peek at the current innovations and looking ahead at some of the futuristic initiatives that are underway. It's not quite the augmented reality of Westworld, but we're getting pretty close, hopefully with fewer robot uprisings. And I'd like to remind everyone watching on our social channels to please send questions, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. I'm joined today by Krista Bourne, Senior Vice President of Sales and Operations at Verizon, Carla Davis, Senior Director of Integrated Marketing and Media at Ulta Beauty, and Stefan Wiper, Senior Vice President of Retail Innovation at MasterCard. I believe Stefan is delayed, having a few technical difficulties. So hopefully he joins us soon, but thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us. Happy to be here.
So I feel like the relevance of having a physical store keeps changing. With the rise of e-commerce 2 decades ago, the store became less relevant, but in recent years, brick and mortar has evolved as a valuable piece of the shopping experience. Now with the pandemic, that's been turned on its head. Krista, why don't you start? Verizon closed its corporate stores in March, but has since reopened them. How have your stores changed as a result of social distancing, and what touchless retail processes have you put in place?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. And again, thanks for having us on the panel. It's an important topic and a time that we're all evaluating how we best serve customers in our brick and mortar environment. At Verizon, we do believe that the brick and mortar environment plays a role and will continue to play a role. So we've made some modifications. In March, we did have 70% of our corporate fleet closed so that we could spend some time understanding this environment and what actions we might need to take. We initially realized that we needed to think about traffic management and we needed to think about transaction safety. So from a traffic management standpoint, what we've changed is we've now created traffic decals so customers know where to stand, where they have space, and how to move through the store in a direction that allows for browsing in an environment where we're trying to maintain social distancing. We've also included plastic partitions on our collaboration tables so that the distance between the customer and the employee are in fact 6 feet, but we also have additional protection with the plastic shield. All of our employees are also wearing face coverings, and we have extras for customers because they are also required to wear a face cover when they come into our store. Aside from the physical elements that I just described, we've reduced furniture, we've reevaluated our displays and made sure that we've only displayed essential SKUs so we don't have more inventory on the floor than necessary. And we continue to look at other things that we can iterate and learn from as we think about this environment. We've also introduced digital tools. We had to really think about the capabilities we had and the innovation we were planning for. And so we decided to lean really heavily on our My Verizon application that has been really helpful to customers in keeping them connected to their account, helping them understand what they get for their loyalty with Verizon through our Verizon Up program. And most recently, they'll use that as a hub to find information on our credit card. We now use it as a gateway to our store. So customers use their phone to do a self-check-in. We've also introduced co-browsing capabilities, so our employees no longer have to touch a credit card, a pen, or share their tablet. They can simply send a link to the customer. The customer can go ahead and complete their information, make their payment. That's important. Here's a big win. Not only do customers not want to exchange their credit card and have that exchange of touching happening, but it's also a way to protect their privacy. That's their private personal information, and we no longer have to personally collect it. They can use the link and enter it themselves. And so we've been able to do troubleshooting, payments, and selling services through our app and digital innovation. And that's completely different than the way that customers would have experienced Verizon prior to COVID.
Now, Carla, touchless is certainly not something that comes to mind when I think about cosmetics and samples. Tell us about how your stores have changed with some of these new restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, similar to Krista, like we definitely still believe that the retail environment and the physical environment plays a huge role in beauty. And so we definitely have been very conscientious about how we continue to allow that exploration and that discovery to happen for consumers, but in ways that feel very safe. Just as it relates to our stores, we are now about 90% open in one way or another. And we have multiple ways for consumers to engage with us in store, pick up, buy online, pick up in store, and curbside are also available outside of our e-com. But when we talk about the physical space and really the ability to try, we really have had to lean on our digital capabilities there as well, because along with some of the shop safe standards that we've established holistically for when people engage with our stores, including face coverings for our associates and asking our guests to do the same, and increasing our cleaning and efforts. One of the biggest pieces is that we no longer have the testers available for use. They are display only. And of course, as we all can imagine, that really is one of the core places where we want to continue to help keep things sanitary and safe for all. So people cannot touch and try in store now, which is a big difference. But our AI technology that we brought in over the last couple of years that we call Glam Lab has really been an opportunity for us to supercharge the engagement with that. And we've been really excited to see how it actually has taken off. Essentially, Glam Lab is an opportunity to see in pretty close, if not real, kind of manifestation of colors on your of eye colors, lip colors, cheek colors, and now even hair colors. People are able to see leveraging either real-time live camera or a picture off of their phone. It originally was for us to kind of, do this idea of touch and try from all places, but it really has stepped up its value from an in-store perspective, so that when people are seeing products that they might be interested in but cannot touch them in store, there is an opportunity for them to still engage. And so it really has been this interesting ability to combine the physical and the digital in our in-store spaces in order to still give people the ability to feel like they can engage and discover the way that they want to in beauty.
So if I'm in a store and I see a lipstick I like, or maybe not a lipstick now because it's all about masks, I see an eyeshadow that I like, I'll download Glam Lab and then I'll be able to just see it there? Or are there podiums around the store that people can use?
Yeah, it's right from your phone, and it's actually a feature within our Ulta Beauty app. And so if you have the Ulta Beauty app, which also includes, personalized recommendations for you in general, it holds your points so you understand the value of your points in offers that are both large, more whole scale, as well as personalized to you, all live in the app along with Glam Lab. And so it really is a one-stop kind of companion for your shopping for Ulta Beauty. And now definitely in these times, having the ability to also help you purchase and decide on color products, eye color products, whatever it is you're looking for while you're in the environment is super important as well. And we've really seen a 5 times engagement, over 19 million swatches to this point. So people are really seeing it as an option, and we're really proud of that.
Now I see Stefan has joined us. Thank you. Glad you worked out those technical difficulties. It's always fun doing this virtually.
Right. It's the joys of technology. It's only good when it works. So that's the key thing.
Now, MasterCard has done a lot of studies about what shoppers are looking for in terms of touchless interfaces and payments. Tell us about what consumers want stores to be delivering right now and what kinds of challenges retailers need to be addressing.
Absolutely. I think it's been interesting. We've always been committed to thinking about how we can help partner with our merchant and retailers to really think about how they're innovating and continuing to evolve all their channels. In particular, obviously looking at traditional brick and mortar and physical store environments. I think we've seen technologies that have been deployed or tested prior to the current COVID environment, which have continued to accelerate in the environment we're currently in. There's probably 3 categories that we sort of look at. One is where we see continued innovation at the point of sale itself, and that's best demonstrated by the use of contactless payments. We actually went through a survey earlier this year, about 17,000 consumers globally, to understand kind of the preference and demand for contactless, and we found an overwhelming number, so over 50% of US consumers are using contactless today. So that's a real increase in terms of what we've seen historically. In addition to that, when we look at sort of just Q1 of this year, that was a 40% growth in terms of contactless itself. So that's a really good demonstration of consumers and brands looking to try and innovate, remove friction, specifically at the point of sale, and using contactless as a key element to that. Outside of just the point of sale, I mean, there's a whole host of other areas where we're sort of looking and exploring and thinking about. Obviously, there's been the continued evolution for things like curbside order ahead. Again, not a new technology, but really think about how that can scale more broadly and across a broader number of retail categories. And then the other element we also look at is technologies that can be deployed throughout the entire store environment, so ways that can help simplify and streamline the experience for the shopper. And that includes everything from computer vision that's being explored or being looked at, all the way through things like RFID technology as a way to kind of track or at least look at product demand inside the store. So there's a number of different areas. And again, our role as MasterCard is to provide assets and capabilities that can help support those retailers. Obviously, contactless has been the one sort of main driver we've seen in the current environment that's really seen some adoption and demand from consumers.
Now, Krista and Carla, how many of the changes that you guys have been deploying, how many of those were already in place pre-COVID and have now been accelerated? Krista, why don't you start?
Yeah, I would actually say the majority of the changes we've made that will be permanent changes were already part of our strategy. We were moving down this path of digital enablement, digital as a companion, making sure the app was at the center of the relationship with our customers. We were really working towards and continue to work towards building our omni-channel capabilities, which we think is very important. In our space, what we see is 70% of our online shoppers, they go online, they get information, but 70% of them land in one of the other channels to actually fulfill. And so we want to make sure we continue to build a strategy and execute against a strategy that really takes into account where customers want to shop and how they want to experience Verizon. And so when you take that into account, a lot of what we did was already on our roadmap and we pulled it forward. Some stuff was new. For example, you heard Carla talk about curbside, and we certainly brought curbside to fruition in light of COVID. We were able to kind of work through that next fulfillment option as part of our touchless experience, but that was not on the roadmap prior. So that's one example of where we've had to rethink about fulfillment choices we had made previously, and we had to introduce some new things to our strategy like curbside. But again, the majority of it was part of the plan and part of our strategy, and we just pulled it forward.
Yeah, in a similar way, it's the same for Ulta Beauty. So it was a lot of things that we had thought about doing, had been starting to dip our toe in. We actually had launched buy online, pick up in store in the back half of last year. And so that was one that as we were slowly opening stores back up, it really was just about supercharging that and ensuring that the capabilities and the capacity of our stores was at the level to take care of the demand. Curbside in a similar way was one of those that seemed like an interesting option, maybe not have been as far up on the roadmap, but absolutely had to be pulled up. And I really appreciate all the work across the teams to make that happen, because they literally went from we need to make this happen to making it happen in probably about 2.5 to 3 weeks. I mean, it was unbelievable Herculean effort across the business to ensure that we were able to support our guests in that very crucial way at that point in the pandemic. I think when we think about the digital piece of it, as I said, Glam Lab, we've actually had for a couple of years. We have been continuing to build out our capabilities within that. What are the things that you can swatch? What are the things that you can actually test in there? And I think it's put us in a great place to be able to help consumers and guests in our stores to be able to do better product recommendations and decisions within that case. So have been really excited about having that as a base. But I think of one of the ones that probably, again, was further out on the roadmap or something we knew we needed to get into. And it really was more about the idea of connecting e-commerce and content at a more definitive way. So when we became a e-commerce only business for the first maybe month of the pandemic, it really made us have to rethink what it means to be an e-com business and really what it means to be a content business and not be seen as like the last step. As Krista said, we often see a very similar behavior where people would go online, but they would shop through other things. But if online is our only way for people to engage, at the time that was the case, how do we ensure that they really feel like they're getting their holistic journey connected to us across the way, so that that end purchase comes with a lot more all across the board connection. And so really supercharging how we are elevating the amount of content that we're putting out. So it's not just about sales, not just about promotions, although that was, very important for folks when they were potentially having to think about using their money in different ways, but also creating more content that really helped to show them that we understood the context of their lives, the context of potential purchases that they would be making, or just the context of what they're looking for and needing in content as it stood. So that was definitely an element that we feel like we needed to add that has helped us get further along in something that we know is important to guests overall.
Now, if you're just joining us, I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli with AdAge. I'm joined by Krista Bourne from Verizon, Carla Davis from Ulta Beauty, and Stefan Wiper from MasterCard. I'd like to say hello to some people tuning in on our social channels. We have Steve Goldberg, Charlotte McClung, James Dwyer, and Paula Loza. Hi. I was wondering if anyone is doing anything around shopping appointments and kind of organizing in-store visits to avoid crowds, but also to make planning easier for customers. Everybody seems to be looking for that kind of thing. Krista, is this anything that you guys are doing at Verizon?
Absolutely. So this is a great example of something that was old and is new again. So several years ago, we offered wireless workshops, and it was a way to help educate our customers on the different things that their smartphones or their tablets could do. It was in the beginning of that period where smartphones were becoming so common and tablets was an emerging product. So we use these wireless workshops to help with that. And those were usually set up through an appointment process that started online and then made its way into the store. So we had since retired that program, but we did not retire appointment capability. We were able to bring that back to the forefront when we went into the pandemic and made sure that it became a tool to help with traffic management. And so if you think about it, since March 15th, we have handled over 200,000 appointments in our stores as customers have found their way to start online, decide they need to come into the store, they schedule an appointment, we call them to confirm the appointment and make sure we're prepared for them when they arrive. And during that phone call, we've been able to triage some of them in a way that they no longer have to come to the store. And customers really do appreciate that effort, because it's one thing to just drag them to the store just to service them when you could have done that just easily over the phone. And in this environment, that matters. That makes a big difference to your customer relationship. So we are leaning in hard on appointments. We will continue to have appointments. We actually see this expanding. We imagine a world where you go online, you need to schedule an appointment. Maybe it's for sales. You might need to schedule an appointment for customer service. You might want to schedule an appointment for tech support. But we do think that there's real opportunity and real equity in giving customers the control of their day, the control of the time they spend with us. We can plan for it better, and we can personalize that interaction so that it is really truly one-to-one and designed around our relationship and not around, an unexpected visit. So we're excited about appointments and see a big future here.
I feel like the challenge with appointments is how it might affect browsing and some of these impulse purchases that people always get when they visit a store. Is this a concern?
I don't think it's a concern for Verizon. If I were to give you an answer on our behalf, I think the way we would react and resolve that is by making sure we have good relationship management behind the scenes with customers. We have a great CRM program and a wonderful CRM team that are always looking to innovate and stay in touch with customers. We're also using our journey learning in terms of system of insights and what we know about our customers to be more proactive and offer them information that we think they would value, including things they might want to purchase. But we want to make sure that those that are coming in for appointments are there to handle a certain transaction, and that will make room for other individuals who do actually want to come and browse. So we're going to try and manage the two, but I do think that there's a way to get there.
Carla, what about at Ulta? Is our appointment something you guys are looking toward?
Yeah, we definitely have been thinking about it into the future. I mean, in the shortest term, from a services perspective, we've always had an appointment-based model. There had been walk-in availability, but given the situation now, we have removed walk-ins in the short term, really, so that we can do a couple things there, right? So that we can manage the crowd or the traffic within the salon setting, and ensure that people have the right amount of space in between for those appointments. So our services have always been appointment based. We actually have been building out our capabilities to make booking those appointments that much easier, so that folks can really understand when they can come in and not have to make a phone call or some of the other ways that they've had to approach servicing. But the idea of doing that from a retail environment perspective is definitely on the radar, and especially as we think about core times of year, as we continue through, whatever this looks like into the back half of the year, and as holiday comes, and knowing that that's a key shopping time frame, but also could potentially, be a point of trepidation for folks when thinking about being in and out of stores. And so it's something that I think is always on the radar, and especially in this context, how do we continue to create safe environments for folks so that they feel comfortable engaging in the retail environment?
Right, all eyes are on holiday. Stefan, what I wonder about is this role of the store as a more experiential, less transactional offering that has gained ground in recent years. I was wondering if you still see the store as an experience despite all of these social distancing and coronavirus concerns, and how will that role evolve in the future?
Yeah, no, and building on the last question, I think what we're seeing is this idea of, really the consumer has become an omnichannel consumer, where they expect sort of a seamless experience, regardless of whether it's a device they're interacting through, whether it's a browser environment, or whether they're physically in stores. So this ability to move with the consumer and have that consistent experience, and have blended capabilities like concierge type services, is going to existed before. It's going to continue to remain very, very relevant for us. The other element I think that's important is this kind of movement towards context, and the idea of how do I enable as a brand or a retailer, how do I build more of a personal interaction with my consumer? What are the tools I can use that help us do that? We sort of see it in two ways. One is where there's an evolution of what we define as the next wave of brick and mortar. So whether it's a movement towards smaller brick and mortar environments, which use technology day one, which are built to be contextual based on the location or consumer segment. So if I'm designing a store for a university versus an airport, again, how do I curate my merchandise? How do I design that store in order to meet the difference in the consumer segment? So that's one element, is this evolution in brick and mortar and really changing it to become much more contextual. The other tool we see is the use of artificial intelligence, which again we think is very, very relevant in the retail space, and can give capabilities to retailers to allow them to personalize that in-store interaction. We've been doing some work within the quick service restaurant space using artificial intelligence to actually personalize the menu you would see at a drive-through. And that's a really good example of this idea of driving relevance, innovating what that in-person experience looks like, and really allowing it to be more contextual.
We're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask each of you about the store trends that you think will outlive COVID-19. Hoping we could just very briefly touch on a couple things that are really key to this in-store experience. Krista, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think my statement would be low touch, high experience. I think that's what people want in an omni environment. They don't really want to be guardrailed by channel rules. They just want a low touch, high experience outcome. And that's going to be the future of retailing, I think.
Carla?
To that point, I mean, I think it's been a testament of how we've talked about it as well. It's the combining of the physical, the digital, and what we think the emotional components within the retail environment. So seeing these as very seamless, and the emotional piece really ensuring that it's creating a space that takes into consideration your shopping needs, but also your need states as it relates to what those categories are, and how that comes to life in a way that feels like it really connects and builds human connection, regardless of the elements that you are interacting with.
Stefan?
Yeah, and you've probably two things. First, I think, is this evolution of the digital experience as we know it, as we think about how do we make, whether it's an e-commerce or m-commerce experience, enhanced, augmented, and also how does that extend into new platforms such as social media, where consumers are engaging and purchasing through those environments. I think the other element is, I love talking about consumer experience, but equally there is this need to innovate the infrastructure required to support these new technologies and think about how do I automate things like supply chain? How do I use things like micro-fulfillment robotics? So ensuring that the infrastructure that supports retail innovates at the same pace of consumer experience is something we saw prior to COVID, but again, will continue and be critical going forward.
Right, these expectations are so high now, and we've all proven how quickly we can adapt, so they'll expect us to do it forever, right? Well, that's all the time that we have right now. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.